nail, get your hammer, a 10 penny nail anytime you want to cook,
A cow head.
or a cow foot for that matter.
You ever cook cow food yet, God?
Virgin cow foot, cow skin, everything.
The man said, I want to cook a cow head. Get
Yeah,
a
'cause the
10
bone-
penny nail.
The bone tough, so you have to tenderize it.
I know the bone, the skin. The skin on the thing. But anyway, you always run the thing. Good afternoon, wherever
Yes,
you are.
Yes.
It is Sunday Scoop. So you might be wondering, what the dickens them two man are up to with that kind of 10 penny nail
We're always up to no good on a Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
But just want to welcome everyone this afternoon. We did this episode almost 5 years ago. And then in going through our archives, we realized that we didn't have a recording of what we did. And so therefore we're going to make good on that effort for the next couple of weeks. This week and of course next week we're going to be doing this. Name of the episode is Foundations, and we're going to delve into the very beginning, or as Richie always says, peel back the onion on the very foundation of what made Jamaican music.
Absolutely. You know, I think we can say that we generally as Jamaicans we take the music for granted, and without recognizing where it's coming from. How did we get here? You know, as you know, God, there's a big bashing in terms of where reggae music going and so on. And again,
I tend to disagree with that. It's not reggae music, it's where dancehall is going. Reggae is still very much alive and well and doing very well in itself.
The ironic thing though is that the view out there is that the music is losing its way, that's all I think. But music is a constantly changing thing, and I guess one of the purpose of an episode such as this is to demonstrate the transformation, the transformative tendencies of the music.
Dynamism of the
And
music.
they're right. That that how change influenced the direction that the music has gone in. And so that song you played earlier,
Song by Hubert Porter called 10 Penny Nail.
absolutely. And that the genre, if you will, is a mentor tune. Now, mentor is largely what we call acoustic music. There were no.
This is what the Naya Binga say, original sound,
Absolutely.
natural sound, which
So-
doesn't need electricity. It just exists in its natural form. And whether there is electricity or not, you will still get music.
And so the instruments are again largely acoustic. You hear that nice little fife, that little
Yes, a bamboo
penny,
fife.
penny fife, right? And then the bass is a rumba box, if you will.
And there's a banjo.
And then there's a banjo and a shaker. You hear that
Yes.
shaker. So there are
Normally made from gourds.
four distinct instruments. But where did this come from? Again, music drawn from the heritage as a colonial society coming out in that immediate post-slavery period. The Jamaicans basically found ways to entertain themselves. If you go back to the days on the plantation during the slavery time, and the big massa having big dance with him violinists and guitarists and wherever, bring them from England. And over time, some of these same, estate workers learned to play some of these instruments. More importantly, the tradition coming out of Africa that stayed with the African community. The participants basically created their own instruments in the absence of these formalized instruments coming out of Britain and the rest of Europe. And so that's where we are picking up these sounds from. These instruments are largely acoustic, hand drumming, a banjo, which we just require.
And the banjo has its roots in Africa.
Absolutely. And of course, the bass, which is the rumba box. And then you have the gourdies that you're shaking with some little pellets on the inside. A calabash that you open it up, take out the guts and dry it and put it back together with a little thing on a handle so you can shake it. and I'm pretty sure our producer will find a mentor photo so we can take. But this is the 1940s coming into the 1950s, and Jamaica is a colonial society. They coming off the estates, people had to find ways to entertain themselves, and whereas we had the little what we call field workers who used to run them little field songs to make the work go easier. Over time, those songs morphed into more everyday experience, and as you hear the satire about the 10 penny nail, you want to cook a cowhead. Basically, what I'm describing is somebody you put a nail in the pot to soften the cow skin, right? How that work, we don't know. But the bottom line is, it things. So essentially, Jamaican music has always been, from its origin, the telling of stories.
And also, the mentor band was a traveling band, and they would move from parish to parish. And one of the effects of a mentor band in that time was how people got their news, because there was no radio. And that is how gossip and also the things that are happening across the island moved with these traveling mentor bands.
There you go. So again, the utility value of the music as a deliverer of news, messaging, and then
And entertainment.
and then you out of that the satire comes on the subject matter and thing, and then so over time this is where the rudiments of creating these songs.
And one of the things that also went with these bands too was a utilitarian piece of law which was crafted at the time, which is what we're experiencing now, where parties in Jamaica are concerned, is the Noise Abatement Act, because you had to get a way to stop people from talking.
Absolutely. That's a very, very significant point, because even within the sugar estates, the tendency was to try not to get the workers to assemble together, or because that communication, and especially they're communicating in a language that the background master don't really understand. And when you start to put it into song, but there's a number of years that separate that, because we are now dealing with the 1940s. We're moving,
and even pre that, Rich, was the quadrille, the different
right.
expression of European music that this then, I wouldn't say slaves, but then was slaves and also post slavery. They were taught to use these instruments to entertain massa, as it were.
There you go. But again, we're looking at a period that really spans the 1940s up to the 1960s. And in the 1940s, radio was absent from Jamaica to a large extent. So, in spite of the fact that people were still putting these musical ensembles together, what started to happen in the 40s is shortwave radio. People recognize that you turn on the radio and you stay in front of the dial, especially at nights, and you could pick up the broadcast coming out of the southern United States. And the music that was coming through was now filtering into the island. At the same time, too, the sound system had started to open up. The Meritone brothers, who now run the Meritone operation, their father reportedly established the first sound system in Jamaica. And the music, of course, that he was playing was mostly jazz and blues and bebop music that them picking up coming out of North America.
Yeah, and one of those earlier sound systems was the mighty Waldron.
Yeah, but Blake it was who set up Meritone in St. Thomas, and then after around within that same period, Waldron, you had a couple of them. Um, Later on, people like Tommy Wong, the Tom the Great, Sebastian, Duke Reed, who
Count
eventually
Nix.
thing, yeah, Duke Vin, Count Nix,
King Edward the Giant.
King Edward the Giant, and so on. So all of these sound systems were now coming through this, the coming into the space during this early to mid 1950s period. But the music they were playing were largely North American music. They were in the 1950s again, same early 1950s. Stanley Motor, right? Stanley Motor decided that here is an opportunity, and he decided to. He had brought in a piece of equipment that could record people's voices and so on.
And acetate.
Yeah, and he advertised this equipment, and people basically flocked to the store. I think the store would have been on King Street or Hanover Street, I remember. And they had a little booth where if you have a little poem or you want to record a little song, and people would come and sing and basically record the thing on acetate. Not as acetate that would have last any long period of time. But people were happy to hear their voices, right?
It was on West Street.
Which was West Street, there you go. And so this basically opened up the idea that, hold on, people can, if you can record a voice, you should be able to record something else. And, chances are you can record music as well. And I think one of the first piece of recorded music that kind of hit the street was with what's his name, Derek Harriott, who had Derek Harriott and what's his name, they recorded Charlie Sang recorded a song called,
his name was Hersang.
Right, Lollipop Girl, right? And as he pointed out, this was a tune that he did the singing, Sang played the piano. There was a little piano in the recording room, and they put this little song together on a temporary acetate, but they were, of course, the excitement. And so once the thing came off the machine, the recording machine, they took this song to a sound system, a dance that was keeping somewhere in a Walton Park Road. The sound was called Thunderbird Sound System. And they put the song, give the song to the selector to play. And of course, this is something new. Yeah? And according to Derek Harriott, remember we had him on our show and he talked about that. Said the song, the record couldn't come off of the turntable. The song played whole night, right? And that basically opened the door to this whole idea that outsiders of the music business could now take on the recording thing.
And that was the beginning of the Jamaican recording industry, as it will. Here is a taste of Lollipop Girl.
That was Derek Harriott's and Charlie Sang's Lollipop Girl, one of the first pieces of recorded music coming out of Jamaica. But we talked about Mento at the time because Mento was kind of the sound that was coming out of the Caribbean. As this side of the music was growing, because and something that we want to make clear to God is there's a tendency when you listen to some people talk about the development of Jamaican music, you get the impression that you have Mento and then Mento stop and then you have something else.
Yeah.
No, the music
boogie.
Yeah, music is a dynamic thing, and so there were genres that were crossing each other. The reality though is that a lot of the R&B and stuff that came through around the same time, this was sounds we were borrowing. the music that we actually owned would have been mental because that was ours.
Right.
And so as people like a Stanley Motor and a Ken Curry and Dada Tewani, when they recognize the impact that the mentor was having on the marketplace, they started to record this music, but they were sending the music away to get it mastered and so on, to convert into recorded material that they would bring back to sell into the island. The Lollipop Girl tune that we made mention of and we sampled earlier was an indication of a completely local music, local production that basically hit the road in its raw, unadulterated form. Whereas a lot of the
enhancements.
Yeah, no enhancement. But when we look at the mentor, I want to spend a little more time on that mentor thing, because in this mentor period, what's his name? Whose song he played, God?
Hubert Porter.
Hubert, right. You had some other people who were coming through at the same time. People like a Lord Flea,
right?
Lord Fly, Count Lasher, right? These guys were putting out music because they were actually performing at well-known night spots.
And their music also tend to be either
straight
calypso,
yeah,
or it was a fusion of calypso and the mentor.
And there you go. And then a lot of that music too, because you weren't playing the songs on radio. A lot of this music where to hear this, you go to a night spot like a Beaumont Beach or a Glass Bucket or a Sheraton, which is the entertainment spots. What the other one name was up at Red Gathering there. They had a little hotel. Monte, have mercy, seen a moment.
There's also a Colony Club.
The Colony, yeah. So these were the spaces that where people were going for entertainment, and of course that is kind of a middle class leaning kind of entertainment. But the people like a Lord Flea and a Lord Fly were making their names on that circuit. And so
the government name for Lord Flea is Byfield Norman Thomas, and Lord Fly would be Rupert Lyon.
Yeah, right. And so these guys were churning out material. The material was what was being presented in the clubs, and then people like Tewani and so on saw the opportunity, took the material overseas, and got them finished and started producing records. And of course, Stanley Motor and Ken Curry, seeing this opportunity, decided that, listen, we want a piece of that action too. I think what sort of opened the door even bigger for Stanley Motors is that Tewani place had a fire and he lost basically all of his equipment, a lot of the tapes that he would have done. And so these guys kind of move over to Stanley Motor. But the Norman Byfield, Lord Flea, Lord Fly combination put out quite a number of sides during the time. Of course, again, this is not music that was able to be consumed by the little man. And so if you want to hear some of these songs, you had to now go to a dancehall thing, which is where, again, we talk about the sound system and the importance of the sound system.
But before the sound system, you had orchestras, like a Dan Williams orchestra.
Right.
And a couple of those songs, I'm going to play two of them, called Why, which was put on a 78 RPM 10-inch, and Naughty Little Flea by Lord Flea and his Calypsonians. All right, that was Lord Power and his Calypso Quintet, song recorded by Ken Curry for Duke Reed Trojan Sound System.
Very important reminder that, God, because in this period, as the music was now being done at the local level, the sound system which had basically been operating in the background for a long. Sound system was always poor people entertainment, right? Um,
Because people uptown
yeah,
would
Uptown is the
just
glass
go
bucket,
and they would listen to these
Sheraton,
different orchestras.
right? And more importantly, you're paying big money to go listen to those bands, right?
Let's say 1 shilling.
No, more than that, man. A shilling you pay for going and dance. But like them kind of glass bucket place, they're like a 2 and 6 and a 5 shilling for going, and then you have to buy some drinks.
You can't take for granted that people understand what 2 and 6.
2 and 6, two,
2
shilling
shillings
and 6 pence.
and 6 pence.
And 3 shillings. So I can't tell you the conversion no, because in today's money that is still a nice change. But the bottom line
A
is
shilling is equivalent to 10 pennies.
or 10 cents. Then it would be to the money bigger. But the fact is, the sound system operated as entertainment for the small man, like a man who doing little, port work and work in a shop or whatever.
The man would be known as a Steve Door.
Yeah, these are the guys. These guys, they
Yes.
wanted to be entertained too, but them can't afford to go to Beaumont Club, which is where the big bands is
Or Glass
well,
Bucket.
like Glass Bucket in the Crossroads, or the Sheraton. These were the high spot, the entertainment spot. You had Sombrero Club in Mullines Road, where the big bands were all playing. And so the little man now who is a laborer or the girlfriend who work in a little store or as a domestic
Or
and so
she's
on,
a seamstress.
or is as a housewife. They wanted to find some entertainment, and the sound system provided that. Now, the sound systems at the time, you mentioned a few of them earlier, Mighty Waldron, we talk about
King Edward the
King Edward the
Giant.
Giant, the Meritone sound system, Duke Reed's Trojan sound, Coxsone. In time, these sound systems now realize that, hold on, the locals like these locally produced tunes. And so we had that song you played, Penny Reelo, that Corey had recorded.
And that's a risky song. That would never be played on the
Wouldn't play
radio.
on radio at that time. But it was done as a special for, you said it was Duke Reed sound system.
Yes.
Right? And so you imagine Duke Reed is in a sound clash with a sound like that.
And this is before Duke Reed became a producer.
Right.
So this song was recorded by Ken Corey for Duke Reed Trojan song.
And they would now use that song to literally, to use a colloquial term, kill the competition, because he would be up against a Coxsone or a Waldron or a Tom the Great Sebastian
Or King Edward the
or
Giant.
King Edward the Giant. And so each sound is trying to outdo the other. Now, in the middle of all of that is the man who sing the song, right? Hardly would I get more than a 5 shilling or a pound for record the song.
One time.
And that's it. You get that money. If you're lucky, you get that money, then you ain't getting no more. And the sound system would have this song playing it for months, and the artists don't get none of it.
Because at that time, the whole thing about royalties was unheard of.
There you go. And more importantly, though, a lot of the people who were performing the music, who were singing the songs and so on, their biggest thrill was hearing their voices on a sound system, on a record, played in a dance. That's the biggest thing for them. And so, the producer or the sound system man is capitalizing on that because he knows the value that this tune is going to have down the road. And we're going to talk about that as we look at this program further on.
One of the contributing factors to a lot of the people who were in Kingston consuming this music was because of the growth that was taking place in the agricultural meccas in Jamaica. You're talking about Portland, St. Thomas, St. Mary, Manchester,
St. Catherine.
for bauxite mining. because the tourism industry was now coming into play. But with mining, bauxite, and all of these things, a lot of people were displaced, so they were heading to Kingston to look for a better life, and they needed to be entertained too.
There you go. And so what you now have is this overcrowding in the city. You never have proper housing. So people just basically trying to make a life for themselves. And the necessity to entertain the masses, the sound system was basically playing on that. So you had all of these lawns, Chocamo lawn. You have what the name? Catch me up now, man. Eh? Siaga won Chocamo lawn. You had Foresters Hall. You had King's Lawn. All of these are in that downtown area, a radius of maybe around 3 or 4 miles between Hanover Street, King Street, Orange Street, North Street, and then you go a little west, going on the edge of Jonestown, which is where.
And a lot of these people lived in then Dongle, which is now known as Jungle. And
Well, Dongle was really what became Tivoli, which would have been south of what we now call Jungle, which would have been Trenchtown. But a lot of these people were clustering there. And once people realized that, hold on, singing is a potential profession. That's where now a lot of these youngsters, and remember, God, most of these people who were singing, these were youngsters, and 16, 17, 18
even
year
younger,
olds.
13. If
Right.
you look at Jamaica's music industry, a lot of the big stars started out young. Freddie McGregor, very young.
Brown,
Dennis Brown.
Saggle, what their name, the people, Errol Dunkley, all of them.
Yeah.
But without coming too far forward, what was also fueling that was the talent contest. This man,
And in comes Veer Johns.
Veer Johns had worked as a journalist per se.
Yeah, before
coming
that,
off the war years, it was covering, writing journalistic stories and so on. He established a program. He came back to Jamaica in the early mid to late 1940s, called the Veer Johns Opportunity Hour.
And a little bit before that, Richard, Veer Johns is a man born 1893, born in Mandeville, and served in the World War, was successful basically as a newspaper columnist in the United States in the 1920s, and then he returned to Jamaica in 1939, and then he had a column called Veer Johns Says in the Jamaica Star newspaper, and then he started the Veer Johns Talent Contest.
Right? And so these amateur hours, these are like a 1 hour. In fact, these competitions were hosted at largely the cinema.
The the movie theaters
Right.
or the cinemas.
Places like Palace,
Ward,
yeah,
Majestic.
Ambassador Theatre. These were the places where you would go and you perform like a song, whether it's a song, a poem, whatever. But these contests were showing up
A lot of talent.
talent potential. And
there's good money to be made.
well, you according to Derek Harrod, remember we had him on the show, him say you win a contest like that and you get like a £2 or a £5 was a big prize. You get £2 if you come second or something like that. And so most of the performers try to do that with the least amount of what we call support personnel, because if you win, you have to split up the money. So if you go
because the crux of the matter is these contests were judged by crowd response.
Right, and so you have to bring your own crowd.
Yep.
Right.
So if you win, your money have to share up.
And you have to share up the money. And it's but the point though is that the contests were turning out a lot of artists, and there were some big finds coming out of those contests. People like we talked about a couple of them. Jimmy Cliff was one of them who came out of that. Dennis Brown came from that as well.
Yes.
Bob Andy, John Holt. Granted, we're kind of moving a little further forward. Alton Ellis, Stranger.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.